Mea culpa from James Corden on his late night show as he addressed the controversy that erupted over his treatment of the waitstaff at a New York City eatery. As Amber Cogliano reports, his complaint about the food has left him eating a big helping of humble pie.
I've decided to sign for one more year on the show, and that this will be my last year hosting the Late Late Show.
James Corden was once the golden boy of late-night TV, a cheeky Brit with a warm smile and endless energy. He seemed to have cracked the impossible code, becoming just as beloved in America as he was back home in the UK. From unforgettable carpool karaoke moments with Adele, Lady Gaga, and even Michelle Obama, to viral games that dominated YouTube, Corden's reign looked unstoppable. But the higher the spotlight shines, the deeper the shadows it casts. In just a few short years, whispers of arrogance, public scandals, and explosive backlash flipped his reputation upside down. Audiences who once adored him began asking a different question entirely. Was James Corden ever really the nice guy we thought he was? How did a small-town comedian, who once embodied relatability and charm, plummet from global fame to one of the most criticized figures in showbiz? The answer lies in a roller coaster journey filled with dazzling highs, embarrassing lows, and controversies that simply wouldn't go away. James Corden's story didn't begin with privilege, fame, or connections. Born in High Wycombe to a family with no ties to entertainment, young James found his calling on the school stage. He wasn't polished, and he wasn't the typical star in the making, but he carried something far more powerful: raw wit, boldness, and the kind of ambition that refuses to be ignored. In his teens, he hustled for roles, small appearances in TV shows, forgettable films, and blink-and-you-miss-it performances that barely left a mark. But fate shifted when he landed a role in Fat Friends. That gig opened his first real door, and by 2007, he and co-creator Ruth Jones unleashed Gavin Stacey. Suddenly, the world knew James Corden as Smithy, the loud, hilarious, yet surprisingly heartfelt best mate. It wasn't just a sitcom hit, it became a cultural phenomenon, with James at the center of it. At this stage, he was still humble, still grounded, and still seen as the everyman who got his big break. This was the James Corden people fell in love with: authentic, approachable, and hungry to prove himself. By the early 2010s, Corden's career was moving at rocket speed, hosting award shows, appearing in films, and charming audiences on British television. He quickly became more than just that funny guy from a sitcom. His stage performance in One Man, Two Governors drew critical acclaim, leading to a Tony Award win in 2012. Proof he wasn't just a comedian, but a legitimate performer. Then came the move that stunned everyone. CBS chose him to replace Craig Ferguson as host of The Late Late Show. At the time, many Americans had no idea who he was. But instead of sticking to late-night traditions, James tore up the playbook. He leaned into viral-friendly content designed for the YouTube era. Carpool Karaoke changed late night forever, blending celebrity interviews with sing-alongs that felt spontaneous and intimate. Moments like Adele belting out her own songs or Stevie Wonder serenading James's wife through the phone weren't just funny. They were shareable, emotional, and felt like glimpses into the private lives of megastars. With additional hits like Spill Your Guts and Drop the Mic, Corden's show pulled millions of views online, dwarfing its TV ratings, but cementing his global reputation. James Corden wasn't just a talk show host. He was the man who made late night relevant again, or so it seemed. Even at his peak, trouble signs were bubbling beneath the surface. The first real blemishes on Corden's career came earlier than many remember. In 2009, after Gavin Stacey, he teamed up with Matthew Horn for Horn and Corden. Instead of another hit, it bombed spectacularly, with critics calling it painfully unfunny. Around the same time, his film Lesbian Vampire Killers was mocked as a box office embarrassment. But the real red flag came in 2010 at the Glamour Women of the Year Awards. Hosting the event, Corden was publicly criticized on stage by veteran actor Patrick Stewart who called out his unprofessional attitude. Instead of diffusing the tension, James clapped back with sarcasm, even mocking Stewart's age. The clash went viral, leaving many with their first real taste of Corden's arrogance. Though he admitted later to undergoing therapy, the damage was done. People began wondering if the fun-loving, down-to-earth James was just a facade. What looked like isolated stumbles were actually the first cracks in the carefully polished image, and soon, those cracks would widen into full-blown scandals. Despite missteps, Corden's star kept rising, hosting the Grammys, starring in Ocean's 8, voicing Peter Rabbit, and rubbing shoulders with Hollywood's elite. He seemed unstoppable. Carpool Karaoke episodes drew hundreds of millions of views, and his games became viral sensations that every celebrity wanted to be part of. On the surface, James looked like the ultimate success story, a British outsider who conquered Hollywood. But off-screen, a different narrative was forming. Rumors swirled about his short temper, arrogance, and how he treated people behind the cameras. Colleagues whispered about his rude outbursts. Former collaborators claimed he wasn't as approachable as he pretended to be. Fans began pointing out small inconsistencies, like when he failed to remember the names of his own crew members during a comedy bit. It seemed minor, but it raised a serious question. How could the man who built his brand on warmth and friendliness seem so cold to those closest to him? For years, these stories simmered quietly, but eventually they boiled over. By 2019, the tide had begun to turn. James's attempt at a Reddit AMA, usually a chance for celebrities to bond with fans, quickly spiraled into a disaster. Instead of fun questions, users piled on accusations of arrogance and first-hand stories of rudeness. From yelling at servers to brushing off fans, he abandoned the thread, leaving the allegations hanging unanswered. Around the same time, his role in the film Cats became a cultural punchline. The movie bombed, critics tore it apart, and James's performance was called cartoonish and embarrassing. Instead of responding with humility, he made crude jokes about the movie, which only angered those who worked on it. The backlash worsened in 2020 with The Prom, where his portrayal of a gay character was blasted as offensive and stereotypical, leading to over 100,000 people signing a petition to keep him out of Wicked. Add in Ricky Gervais accusing him of recycling jokes, and Corden's once golden reputation was rapidly unraveling. For the first time, audiences weren't laughing with James. They were laughing at him. The scandals piled up fast. A behind-the-scenes reveal showed that during Carpool Karaoke segments, James and his guests were sometimes being towed instead of actually driving, sparking accusations that the show was fake. Then came a major misstep with BTS when James referred to their fans as 15-year-old girls. That single line alienated one of the most powerful fandoms on Earth, and the backlash was instant. On top of that, Asian communities criticized Spill Your Guts for featuring traditional foods framed as disgusting, accusing the segment of casual racism. Former staff members accused James of being controlling and quick-tempered, while online critics slammed him for stealing jokes. But the breaking point came in October 2022 at Balthazar, a famous New York restaurant. After berating staff over an omelet, the owner publicly branded him the most difficult customer in 25 years. The story went viral worldwide. Though James called to apologize, he later downplayed the incident in interviews, frustrating both critics and fans. At this point, his image was beyond repair. He had become a symbol of celebrity arrogance. In 2023, James announced he was leaving The Late Late Show. Officially, he cited a desire to spend more time with his family, but few believed it. By then, the wave of backlash was too strong to ignore. The show's final episode tried to recapture the old magic, with guests like Adele and Harry Styles joining for one last Carpool Karaoke. But the spark was gone. There were no viral moments, no cultural explosions, just a quiet farewell. CBS didn't even bother finding a replacement. Instead, they canceled The Late Late Show entirely, ending the franchise after nearly 3 decades. For James, it was the ultimate sign. His era in Hollywood wasn't just over, it was erased. What should have been a triumphant exit felt more like Hollywood quietly closing the door behind him. After leaving the US, James returned to England, but the controversies followed him home. In 2025, his attempt to expand his £11.5 million North London mansion sparked fierce backlash from neighbors, with over 20 formal objections filed. Complaints of noise, environmental damage, and his reputation for arrogance only deepened the divide. Locals saw it as another example of Corden getting his way at the expense of others. Though he remains a talented performer, the gap between James Corden the entertainer and James Corden the man seems impossible to close. His charisma once made him a household name, but his flaws, arrogance, rudeness, and insensitivity left scars on his career that no viral clip could heal. His legacy is now one of contrast, a man who could make the world laugh in the car with Adele, but also make a restaurant server cry over an omelet. James Corden's story isn't just about one celebrity's downfall. It's a case study in how quickly fame can rise and how fragile it truly is. Audiences can forgive mistakes, but arrogance, disrespect, and insincerity leave a mark that no apology can erase. The bigger question now isn't whether James can rebuild his career. It's whether he can rebuild the trust of the people who once adored him. Because in the end, fame isn't measured by the size of the spotlight or the number of views on YouTube. It's measured by the way you treat others when no one's watching. And for James Corden, that's the part of the story still left unwritten.